company and everything?
Here, I'll I'll jump in. Rick, I'll do it. Let me give the audience a little introduction, and then I'll let you sort of dive into it.
Perfect.
But now, I appreciate everybody joining in today for today's Tuesday webinar session. My name is Ray Walters. I will be your host for today's session. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jose Delgado. For those of you that might be
How's it
joining
going?
in for the first time, Jose Delgado's got over 20 years of experience in healthcare consulting, currently owns a mental telehealth clinic, and this will be our 61st episode. So, yeah, we've been doing these since 2023.
Yep.
And We're happy to bring in today a little change of pace, but for a good, obviously for a good change of pace, we're going to bring in Mr. Ric Garcia. He's a seasoned medical sales professional. He has over a decade of experience spanning both in the private and public healthcare sectors. He's an expert at bringing value and advanced knowledge of wound care products to clinicians, and ultimately, his goal is improving patient outcomes. Rick, anything you'd like to add that maybe I had missed, please feel free to share with the audience.
Yeah, Ray, Jose, thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate it. You kind of nailed it right there. I'm all about making sure that patients have the best outcomes and wound care solutions. I am a rep for Aroa Biosurgery, and our regenerative technology is at the top, right? There's some really exciting things that we have coming into this new year, and I'm excited to share some of that with you all. Not so excited about the recent outcomes of these last playoff games, but you know what? We move forward. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, shoot, with how some of these games have been, they probably could have used some of your some of your technology, depending on the different usages. Just for so that way everybody kind of has an idea. This is very much a B2B kind of company rather than a B2C company. Does that make any?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Because I saw when I was reviewing your website that there were some applications there that I was like, if someone has basic experience, they could probably just do it themselves and on a kind of like a first aid kind of a basis. Does that make any sense?
So
Rather
there
than going to get
is
stitches or something?
Yeah, there's some truth to that. So our platform technology is Endoform, and that's been used in the market for over 15 years now. So over 7 million cases for our extracellular matrix used worldwide. So specifically for those patients who, maybe they can't get in to see their doc, or they're in really remote areas,
Yeah.
Endoform is the perfect device for them to use. And we have specific things that they will be able to utilize to, just make it step by step, really easy to apply and heal those wounds. But on the other side of things, right,
Mhm.
our devices are used in the whole continuum of care. So not
Okay.
just in your outpatient, not just in your home health or your skilled nursing facilities, but we have very robust regenerative technology that's used in the inpatient OR side of things as well.
Got it. Okay. So when I was looking at it, and I've been aware, Ray and I've been aware of the technology for quite a bit because it's been around for a hot minute, but it's been really catching fire, I guess you would say, the last 2, 3 years since COVID, right? I apologize. My 3-year-old apparently wants to try to get into my office and guest speak. But basically, what I was looking at was a lot of opportunities, and we like to give opportunities to our viewers that are in different kinds of settings. Maybe there are more remote areas that are near to like a bunch of hiking, like so they could potentially be like the first aid kind of situation or that more chronic care kind of situation. So I'm kind of curious where the opportunities are. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so it can be used in both acute and chronic wounds. Our grafts specifically are used in traumatic cases all the time.
Okay.
So whether it be significant road rash from a motorcycle accident, or more traumatic wounds where you could have significant tissue deficits.
Okay.
It can be used it can be used from everything from your diabetic foot ulcer to your traumatic wounds where you have, actual, um,
Now, I'm not much of a clinician at all. And by much of a clinician, I mean I barely passed basic science in high school. You know what I mean? So my specialty is far more in the how do we put the tools in place for the providers to play with their new toys and we operate better, right? So what level of provider would a practice need to have to be able to use some of your products, right? Because I'm looking at it like if I have a small outpatient primary care office to a large hospital system is going to have everything from end to end care, which would be perfect for you. But a smaller outpatient office could absolutely, especially with all these quality care models popping out, have opportunity there. Is this something that an RN could do? Is this something that a mid-level has to do? Is this something that, you need an MD or DO to do? Like how do we set this environment up to be able to play?
yeah. So that's a great question. Um, it's always best if you have a prescription. However, you can have a doc prescribe it to say, let's say you have a wound on your arm, right?
Mhm.
You're out riding your mountain bike or
I've got a 3 year
something.
old, I got a 6 year old. They're throwing stuff at
Yeah,
me all the time. All right. So let's just, you know.
yeah. So, let's say something happened to you, you go in and
Yep.
you want to get your wound healed. Um, you know, any one of your providers that you work with, they can prescribe it to you and they can
Okay.
get it filled through a local DME, right?
Got it.
And
Okay.
then
So
then our products are sent to your house and you can apply them yourselves.
okay, so we're talking about the low end. Would this replace like stitches, for example? I'm a baby about needles. A lot of patients are
No,
baby
no,
about needles.
no. It
So
would not replace stitches. Every wound's different. Some need
yeah,
stitches, some don't,
yep, yep, yep.
Just get the
Um,
glue out.
Yeah, right. Like,
Just-
can this replace the glue methodology? Or
yeah,
is this like a
I don't
first
think,
aid kind of?
yeah, glue's not the best option for wounds. Um,
It's battlefield medicine, Rick. Come on.
but if you want a lot of scar tissue, then go
Okay.
ahead and use the glue. But if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want great tissue, site-specific tissue to heal within your wound and to have very little scar tissue, that's why you reach for Enform, right? This is
Got it.
simple. It's really easy for anybody to use, from you up to your surgeons who are in the OR operating on various different cases, from your NSTIs, necrotizing soft tissue infections, to there's a whole myriad of different
Okay.
opportunities for it to be used on.
Now, something like this, and the way that someone explained it to Ray and I, God, 2, 3 years ago at the conference, Ray,
Probably
they
me.
kind of, it
It
may
might have
have been
been.
you. I mean,
It might have
I
been.
barely remember what I had for dinner last week. And we meet so many people there at the conferences that we're always bouncing. But it's almost like second skin. So would this be effective for those that are dealing with burns?
Absolutely.
How
Yeah.
much, is this like a low level, hey, I burned myself grabbing something out of the stove, or is this something potentially as great as like someone that was in a fire and
Yeah.
instead or pre-reconstructive or instead of reconstructive surgery, like what kind of outcomes could one use this kind of thing for?
So
Or what
it
kind of
can be
circumstances?
used. It can be used on burns, and especially our graft myriad, and our graft myriad morsels. Those are specifically indicated for those, and we have
Okay.
protocol for that as well. But I think it's important that I discuss a little bit how our technology is
Absolutely.
created. So
Absolutely.
our technology is sourced from that first stomach of the sheep, right? And then it's decellularized, and all of the host DNA and all of those things that typically cause a pro-inflammatory response, which oftentimes will lay down scar tissue. Those host DNAs, all that stuff that causes that response, are removed. So we're left with the fully intact, nice, beautiful extracellular matrix, right? Um, and then it's sterilized for human use, right? That sterilization process, it might seem like a very small thing, but the way we process our graft is very minimal so that important things like vascular channels are retained in there. For the, bringing this down to, so that my daughter can understand, those vascular channels, they're kind of like a framework. If you look on your hand, you can kind of see veins. That's some of your vasculature, you know, um, or a way to understand it. So when you put endoform in, and when you put our grafts in some of your more traumatic cases, you are supplying the body um, with a roadmap, with a great way for your cells, like your fibroblast cells and all these good cells, to come in, so that new tissue is formed um,
Okay.
over over that defect, over that wound.
So I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna oversimplify it in respect of it's easier for me to like
Mhm.
really grasp it and play with it. Because of the DME process, you have certain type of patient that comes through, tend to be Medicare or heavy insurance or any of that case. When I get a scratch on my car and I need to get it repainted, is there going to be a distinct difference between where that spot got painted and it's fresh versus that 10-year-old paint job from factory? You know what I mean? Like how does that work? Because there is a level of vanity that a lot of patients have, almost like they'd rather keep the scar than show off, something that doesn't look correct.
Yeah,
Does that make any sense at all?
absolutely. Yeah. Um, so, I can share some images and stuff too, but there are,
Let me know
you know,
when. I can pull them. I got them. I got them on my end, Rick.
oh, you
Okay.
you have those up there for me, Ray?
Yeah, here, give me a sec. I'll share a screen and we can go through them.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
just a warning for
more of a
anybody
conversation,
on,
but yeah, definitely, if we've got pictures, let's play with some of the pictures. I will warn everybody, some of this sometimes, looking at dead skin before it gets replaced can be the before pictures can be a little tough, but
In all fairness, we picked the less gruesome looking ones.
oh,
So,
perfect, perfect.
and
You guys
trust
were
me,
thinking of me.
I've seen some pretty gnarly ones that Rick had in his phone. So, hang on just a second. Why is this not letting me do it?
yeah. So just to answer your
Stop sharing
question
real
there a
quick.
little bit, Jose.
Yeah,
So, one of the neat things that I like to see is typically in your darker pigmented people, kind of like myself, when you get that scar tissue, it can be very contrasting, right?
yeah,
You can really tell where that scar tissue is. But
yeah.
when you use our technology, very, very little, right?
Okay.
I thought
Very,
this was a really good
very
example
minimal.
of what
And
Rick's
even to the
explaining.
point where that surrounding tissue outside of the wound can oftentimes look even better than what it started at, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell us can you tell us a little bit about this picture? Like what happened with this patient? Was it an ulcer or an abscess or something?
Yeah, so this was for this patient. Do you have the first image I sent you over there, Ray?
Yeah, let's hang on a
Whoa,
sec.
that looks a lot different.
Now this is
Holy cow.
Yeah. Um, so
this
if
the
you're
one you're
able
looking
to,
for, Rick?
absolutely.
Okay. Let me maximize.
Wow.
Yeah. So this patient was here in St. Augustine, Jacksonville area, right? When I first was with the nurse practitioner to see this patient, that wound did not even look like this. It was dry and desiccated. So, like, just think of where you have that like white opaque area right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That actually looked like beef jerky. Okay.
Oh,
And that typically happens to your tendons when they dry out.
Wow.
yeah.
So this is a week after we have this looks like a normal wound. You can see the structures and they're starting to be restored. If you go to that second picture there, Ray.
Yep.
So this is the pre, right? This is the
Yep.
pre,
That
or
is
this is
And
this is
so
the
that first picture I shared was on the 4th of July. This
okay.
is 4 days later. Okay. Four
Okay.
days later, you have all of that tissue is pretty much filled in there, and we're not too far from healing this patient, right? Um, so rapid granulation tissue forms. You can actually see the vasculature, the little tiny those vessels forming across and coming across that top there.
yeah.
And this is healthy tissue to the point where we get to that final image where the patient is fully healed, right? Um, so incredible outcomes. And this is just with our endoform technology, which is specifically for outpatient,
Okay.
um, which you can apply, which is typically your providers, they're going to write a prescription, device endoform's going to get sent to your house. They might have you come back in and coach you on how to use it, apply the first ones. But this is just endoform for your outpatient. So for this
So
patient specifically, it completely changed his life. You know, at
yeah.
one point he came in the office and he was so heartbroken and so beaten down by trying to get this wound healed. He was like, I don't think I can keep coming to these to get this wound healed.
Yeah.
And I had to, have to be human with people. These are not just, it's very common where we think, this is just a patient. No, this is a person. These are people that are going through a lot of hard times. And this is 26 cents for a square centimeter you know,
So
so
this is okay. That was going to be my next question. Is this purely an insurance play, or is this actually feasible for somebody to be able to do on a cash basis? At 26 cents a centimeter, I mean, most injuries that are going to be outpatient anyways, it's going to cost a little bit more than a Band-Aid, but do a hell of a lot better.
absolutely. So it's not one thing I want to caution is that it is not a glorified band-aid. This is
No,
a
no, no.
for
It's
all
again
purposes. Yeah,
oversimplified analogy. I don't want you to think it's a direct comparison.
no, for all purposes, this is a skin substitute. This is a skin graft. It is just able to be used by anybody, right?
God.
And that's what our goal is with Aroa is to bring regenerative technology for everybody.
So I know that you have a hard out in 6 minutes, and I've been asking a lot of questions. Ray, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say, sort of looking into the future, is there anything next, that Aroa is working on, or anything in the ECM technology industry? Any other upcoming developments or products that you're excited
Yeah.
about?
So we are always learning and looking for the best ways to improve or re-engineer our technology so that we get the best outcomes, best healing outcomes for our patients, right? One of the more newest that has come out is we have our graft called Symphony,
Hmm.
kind of like your orchestra. The
Yep.
reason why it's called that is because it when you apply this graft,
Hmm.
which is basically Aroa ECM, the same that's found in endoform, 3 layers, and sandwiched in between is a layer of hyaluronic acid, high grade medical grade hyaluronic acid. So,
Okay.
a lot of anyone familiar with beauty products is probably
You're
familiar
not getting
with.
this Ulta.
Yeah, you're familiar with the role of hyaluronic acid, but when it comes to wounds, what it does is it draws in and retains that moisture in the wound bed, which is important for best healing outcomes. And it drives keratinization. That's a very, long scientific word, right? But keratinization is just basically towards the end of wound healing, it it is rapid, right? That's what finally closes over that wound. So incredible technology, seeing phenomenal results with different patient populations. So that's our newest graft, and I'm happy to talk with anybody about that, or if anybody has any questions, or feel free to reach out to me. Um, you know, I'm all about just healing patients and getting the best outcomes and
So
not you know at an exorbitant price.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So because again, you're respecting your time. Any provider or specialty that deals with an open wound, whether it's acute or chronic, would absolutely benefit from working with you and providing this service to patients.
Yep, absolutely.
So I don't need a surgery center. Um, I basically need the same kind of equipment I would use to do stitches or a biopsy. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, so the
So obviously
process, and I'll just.
dermatology, right? Like obviously dermatology, that it's a straight fix,
Yep.
primary care, perhaps urgent care.
Yeah, it can really be used in all settings, and I'll just go over the application process real quick, so that anybody can understand. You have your wound, and if Ray, you want to bring up one of those pictures of the
Yeah,
wounds, that'd be
sure.
perfect. But you have your wound, and you need to
Yes, sir.
heal that wound. So you take your endoform, or if you're in on the inpatient OR side of things, you take your myriad, your morsels, you cut it to the shape of the wound. Unless you're implanting it, that's a whole other story. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
into right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you cut it to the shape of the wound,
Okay.
and you hydrate it with some saline solution. You can either put it in the wound bed first and then hydrate it, or you can hydrate it first and then put it in there. You can use a hydrogel, or let's say you're out in the middle of the woods with your daughters and fishing, and something happened. Sterile water in an emergency case can work as well. And then you make sure that you have some sort of non-adherent dressing. If you're out in the woods, it might be, um, you know, a band-aid would work, but if you're in an actual setting, like say either primary care or wound care, something like that, you can use a
Bandage.
yeah, you can use a Mepitel. You can use, various non-adherent dressings to go over on top of it, which most have in their bag already.
Yeah.
So
So
very
basically,
simple process.
yeah. So basically, you're looking at if I'm out in the woods or something, to use that example, instead of like Neosporin or some antibacterial, we're putting something like this on right away and then covering it.
Yep,
Would that be accurate?
absolutely. Yep. So you take your endoform, you put it in the wound.
Yep.
If you want to put a little Neosporin on it, you can, and then you take your Band-Aid and put it on top of that.
This might be
So
a crazy question. I know, I'm sorry. I know we're limited on time here, but
yeah,
why aren't they selling this in like
over the
a
counter.
Target, over the counter, or
Yeah.
Publix? You know, it just seems like I don't know. It just seems like a no-brainer at this point. Like
You know,
I'm
that's a
sure
good
there's
question.
regulations and
Um,
whatnot, but yeah.
yeah, there's always some nuances and hurdles to every to things, but we really want to make sure that it gets into the hands of our professionals first, so that people are very familiar and understand, hey, I went and got this product off of the shelf at Walgreens and I used it. Well, why isn't it working right? You know, you can go into your local wound care or your primary care, and they're going to know about it, and they're going to be like, well, you probably shouldn't have put that other dressing on with it,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well,
Good
I'd love
point.
to have you back. Maybe in a couple weeks or a month. So that way we can go dive in a little bit deeper. But absolutely, it was great having you on. And yeah, I mean, definitely gives us something to think about. Um, it's
It's
interesting
interesting.
stuff. Yeah, I'm curious
It's
to see if you guys are going to start doing other organs as well, because the skin is the largest organ, but definitely not the only one. So I'm curious to pick your brain about that, futuristic side of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we can definitely talk about that more. The fact that ours comes from the stomach of the sheep, we can source like really large sheets of this regenerative tissue. So,
cool. Cool. Well, then, yeah, definitely. I know you have the heart out, so definitely thank you for coming on with us.
Yeah,
Everybody,
thank
if
you
you
so
got any,
much, Rick. Appreciate you being
yeah,
here.
write them or email them to Ray and myself, and we'll have Rick back on sometime soon, and we can go over the questions that you guys have and any of this other fun stuff that we were starting to talk about.
absolutely. Well, Ray, Jose, appreciate your time. Invite me on. And
Yeah,
for everybody else who's joined, thank you for watching in. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or you want to learn more about it. Okay.
thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so
All right.
much, Rick.
Have a good
Have a
one.
good one.
That's interesting, interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, um, if I'm in office, it's great marketing
Well, I was gonna
because
say, I mean, what I got is you can use it at any level, you know. And funny story, when well, we met Rick at the conference, but he invited me to a small primary care clinic because they were looking for a compliance solution. And he gave his presentation. He was showing them his ECM technology, and again, it's a small primary care practice. But he was
yeah,
talking. The physician was talking about, hey, I get a burn victim every once in a while, or they burn their hand on the stove, or
yeah.
something stupid. But a product like this, it
I mean,
seems cost effective, and
yeah,
it's
cost effective, easy. I'd be curious about what are the storage requirements for something like that? What's the shelf life?
yeah,
Is it
yeah.
something that honestly any first aid kit should have?
I
But the
think so.
methodology going through a DME makes it sound a little bit more complex because anybody dealing with insurances know how much fun it is to
Uh,
try to get a prior auth for a
I was
DME.
asking, I'm like, why isn't this
Um,
in a Publix or
yeah, so I
anywhere?
mean,
But
it sounds as though they're not ready to deal with the
yeah,
customer service and customer experience for when there's a screw up on the customer side, right? Like the product works the way that it's designed to, but if you
it's
don't have any knowledge about how to use it, it could be a problem. So that's
yeah,
where
it's
you,
not
I,
it's
yeah,
not as simple as throwing it on like a Band-Aid.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like
So
most
it
people
sounds
would
like they're
probably think, and not read the
I
instructions.
mean,
But
that's what I was thinking it was. It's, like I'm
I
thinking,
mean, it kind of seemed like it at first.
yeah, and
Um,
it may be something that down the road it is like a band-aid, right? Like that
yeah.
white part that goes over the wound,
Well,
maybe that
what did he
becomes
say?
the
The
sheet.
hydrolonic acid is kind
Yeah,
of it's kind of that to me that kind of leans more toward the Band-Aid. It's kind of all in one or
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious about the usages on something like that, Like I'm also curious about the vanity medicine, if let's say I got stitches, I'm thinking of my brother who's got a Harry Potter scar from a soccer wound. I'm thinking about, like
Yeah.
post surgery of some kind where I have a scar that I don't really want to have anymore, maybe post C-section. Like there's a lot of different applications there that are kind of interesting to me on the vanity side. And to think that it's that cost effective, it would kind of make sense to have it in those kinds of well spas and things like that. And then I'm
Yeah.
curious to know,
Good
is it
point.
something that works for scarred tissue? Like if
Like
I've got
already
already,
scarred tissue, you mean?
yeah, if I've already got scarred tissue, does it fix the scarred area? Or you know what I mean? Like I'm curious
uh,
about some of that more perhaps
kind of,
vanity
yeah,
style.
special circumstances, I suppose.
I mean, it's special right now, but I mean, you tell me how many people would want to get rid of the scars when
Oh
they've got,
no,
you know what I mean? Like,
I agree. It could be
kidding?
I think we can get him back on and maybe we can dive a little
Yeah,
deeper into the sort of
yeah, yeah,
special
yeah.
cases and maybe he's got some some more before and afters you can snag for that.
I mean, because this sounds like absolutely. If I've got a hyperbaric chamber, if I'm dealing with wound care, if I'm a home health and I'm dealing with chronic care, a hundred
That's
percent
yeah.
shut up, work with them on the outpatient side and call it a friggin' day. Because
No,
the last
agreed.
thing you want in general in healthcare is for any patient to start having to chop things off because the
Yep.
skin, the area has died. That's the last thing you want, because the second you start chopping, life expectancy drops like a rock.
Yep. No,
It's
100%. This
it's
is
absolutely wild.
certainly preventative to that. And like I said, he had some more uh
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
painted
I'm curious.
pictures of these different
Oh
case
no, I
studies.
don't want
I
to
mean,
see
it
them.
wouldn't have bothered me, but I wanted to just keep it light. I told him just keep it light.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
he
I
had
mean,
one of a patient that was bedridden, had ulcers all over their back, and
I
they
mean,
used this
we,
technology on them, and it was like night and day almost. It was crazy.
we can go
Um,
as deep as bullet wounds,
yeah, no,
as fire burns, as
yeah,
frostbite. Like, how effective is this stuff? How quickly does it work?
yeah.
I'm curious to see what is the timetable difference? Is there a quality difference? Is there a time difference? Is there a cost difference? Because this seems easier than like stitching a puncture wound.
No, yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, I
I
mean,
agree.
I'm
Takes less
curious.
time and
I'm
hell,
curious about the pain side of it, right? Like,
yeah.
because what's one of the biggest things you hear about burn victims? And I'm sorry to go back to burn victims all the time, but when you're talking about skin grafts, they're the ones that they don't need a two by two. They need
No, they
like
need friggin'
a whole
big.
body or a
They need a
whole
big.
limb, and then they're pulling skin from other areas of the body. That prevents that whole traumatic aspect. How does it help with the pain side? Because one of the big things with burns is having to redress those wounds
Right,
constantly because you know what I mean? Like
right.
I'm curious about that because I mean just the healing process. If it's more convenient and less painful, shut up. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like let's make it easier. But it sounds like it's an FDA, it's a combo of FDA and the market may not be trained well enough on wound care to do it properly. And I'll be honest with you, I'm probably not trained enough to do it. And I'm around providers all the time. Like I'm an idiot.
Rick would be able to teach us.
But you know what I mean? Like I
He
mean,
scrubs
I
in.
I can tell you stories of guys I know that literally had to get staples and they didn't want to go to the doc, so they pulled the staples out themselves, like dumb things. But
Uh,
if you're telling me that, hey, this is $3, I don't need to do that. Or they do the staples and then just slap it on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm curious to see how in depth because I'm looking at it like, hey, if I can get an RN to do something simple like that, but I can bill a basic office visit and use this as a DME tool or use this as a, if I was a sports team or if I was something that wanted to brand myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm curious to see how that all fits and
I just
works.
Well, you mentioned earlier about these things have an expiration date because at this point I'm like I feel like no matter what industry and it might be worth just having a box of these on hand,
I
like
mean,
like
I mean,
I don't know.
is I have like again, I'm so ignorant on this stuff. Like, is it do I buy like a roll like I do aluminum foil?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
when he was visiting the primary care, he pulled out it was like maybe
is
an
it like
inch.
Listerine strips? Like I open the container and I just, you know what I mean? Like I
It was like a squared patch. Yeah, you know what? Next time we get him on, I'll ask
yeah, but
him
you know what
to.
I mean though? Like, I hope that somebody is sitting here like I have the same question, but he makes us all sound so dumb.
I saw Meredith join in here. Meredith, where were you? Uh, I wanted Meredith to. Meredith is a operations manager for a primary care group, and I thought this would be beneficial to her.
Well, she can watch it,
Yeah,
rewatch it. I mean,
Meredith.
she
Rick had to do a hard stop at 2. But it was a great presentation. Obviously, this video will go up on our YouTube channel, and I'll send it to you directly. Probably going to get him on a future episode as well to sort of dive a little deeper.
yeah,
But
yeah. Because I'm looking at it like if I'm in outpatient primary care or I'm a multi-specialty or I'm in urgent care or even ortho, podiatry, dermatology. I mean, I'm sitting here like, okay, this isn't a way for me to generate revenue, but perhaps it's a way for me to expedite process. Does that make any
save.
sense?
Well,
Or
I think
get
at the end of the
and
day, you are going to create more revenue because well, it's kind of a good. I want to say it is a goodwill thing, but at the same time, like you said, you're saving money because you're not spending as much time. You know.
I'm curious to see if like, hey, this with a hyperbaric chamber, you know, the person's wounds 3 days. You know what I mean? Like I'm curious to see like what are the different potentialities there where if I'm a quality model, this makes 100,000% sense. If
Mhm.
I'm an outpatient office, this is a convenience factor for the patient, you know, but if I'm a patient, do I want to have something like this on standby by itself? You know, like I've got 2 boys, you know, like
Yeah. No,
they gonna get
absolutely.
they've gotten hurt, they will get hurt. They're boys, you know, like
It's
you know,
inevitable.
yeah, it's inevitable, right? So I'm
Inevitable.
curious, does this prevent me from having to go to an urgent care for something?
I
Potentially,
honestly, I mean, I think in some circumstances it certainly could, but that's
is
why,
you know,
we'll get them on another episode and we'll
yeah,
ask these questions.
yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious. I mean, I'm so curious about it that I'm like, hey, all right, if it's a puncture wound, is this, you know, is this replacing gauze or is this just like a tape?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, or does this have to be a wound that's not actively bleeding? You know, like there's a lot of little details here that could be interesting and open up other pathways.
sure.
So, huh, fun stuff.
No, absolutely. We'll get them on another one. I mean,
Yeah.
we're booked up right now. We're booked up all the way until the second week of March. But
So next week, Ray, what are we talking about next week?
so next week we are going back to our roots, which we've been doing. I know we've been doing a lot of topics on HIPAA, but
Yep.
this one is for our customers. I've gotten, I don't know,
We're doing
several.
a frequently asked question.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, right. Well, no, this is not actually. This is just based off customer service calls that I've dealt
Okay.
with in the past. But we're getting a lot, and I feel like this has always been a thing, but we're getting a lot of outreach where physicians are dealing with that bad egg patient that's leaving them, one-star
Roger.
reviews on their Google, their Yelps,
Yep.
and sort
Yep.
of,
Yep.
in a sense, it kind of holds them hostage, even if it's a situation where, you know, maybe they never even saw the patient. They just fired the patient and pay that
Oh yeah.
person left a bad review, you can't really do anything about it.
No.
That's the bottom line. And we've been getting some inquiries. Hey, what do I do in this scenario? And I always tell them, well, stay calm. You don't want to. You don't want to. You know,
Seem petty.
yeah.
And then
You don't
and
want to be
we have to be
petty
careful.
because that
Yeah,
affects
see
your
the problem is
reputation,
this
even
this
further.
sucks. Because
Yeah,
they can say whatever they want on there, but we can't fire back the way that we would like to, because if we release more information, that's a HIPAA breach.
exactly.
You know
So
what I mean? So there's a
usually
very,
what I'm
very
one of the things,
tight
just
rope.
be level-headed, don't match
Yeah.
this person's energy, but
Yeah. I
like I
mean,
said, I feel like that'll be a good subject, considering that a lot of attendees are, in healthcare, and this could be a situation that could happen to you. So
I
happy
mean,
to shed some
it's not
light
a
on
matter
it.
of if. It's not a matter of if. It's when.
It's when,
It's when.
I mean,
And then
hell, when I
depending on
work
the
for the
subspecialty, it'll happen more frequently.
absolutely. I mean, when
You
I
know,
work for the
so
weight loss clinic, that we'd get a few. We at least got a few of them.
oh
Now
gee.
you kind of I always recommend you want to fight fire with fire. If you get a bad review, guess what? Go get 10 positive reviews and just bury it.
Yeah. Because there's not really the sad part is that there's not really much you can do about it.
Yeah,
And in some of the subspecialties like pain management or in mental health, you're gonna get a lot the second you stop being the candy man.
yep, yeah.
Like, hey, I can't. You did what med school did you go to? Please tell me again why you think you need these drugs at this high of a dosage. No, that puts everybody
I'm literally having
at
flashbacks where we had a bad review because a patient went through their Adipex or prescription, and of course they're trying to get more. We can't do it, and
even if I wanted to, I couldn't do it.
yeah, exactly. And
Even
that was
if I wanted,
explained to a T. And nope, doesn't
and
matter.
most of the time I don't want to anyways because it's bad medicine. It's bad for you.
Yeah.
No, it's I mean that'll be a fun one that we can go into.
Yeah,
Uh
well, yeah, it will be. I'm looking forward to that. And then the week after, I know we talked about this the other week briefly, but a couple of scenarios have came up where patient comes in, does a consultate or potential patient, should say, comes in, does a consultation with the practice, and maybe it's just not in his or her budget. And then they have a friend or a best friend that offers to pay for the treatment. How is that handled from a HIPAA perspective? Um, that
I
scenario's come up
don't
a couple occasions, so I feel like that might be a good one to talk on as well. That would be the second week
I
of
mean
February.
yeah, I mean, I don't like those, but I spend the cash the same way, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, as a practice, I don't recommend it, but it's none of my business once services are rendered and bills are paid.
I mean, at the end of the day, the patient or the potential patient is the one telling the friend their business. And
Yeah.
I mean, if the friend wants to pay, by all means, cash is king,
Y-
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So,
But
whew, all right.
it's more so just explaining that,
That process.
that process. And, the
Absolutely.
main thing is, not when you're speaking, or if you're contacting that patient, you're not speaking with a friend directly and talking about the patient, and, really common sense stuff, but it'll be a good one to go over.
Yeah. No, sounds great.
So, but awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you, Jose, as always. And
Anytime.
if anybody in this chat has any webinar topic suggestions, maybe something that's going on in your industry, let us know. Mention it in the chat, and we'll be glad to talk on it. I do have Ric's information up here on screen. If you guys like to get in touch with him, there's his phone number and his email. You guys will also receive some correspondence with his contact information as well. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's attendance, and
Yeah.
look forward to next week's discussion. And for those of you that might be joining in for the first time, I just posted our YouTube channel in chat. Jose, we got like 4 new subscribers in the past 3 days. I've never seen that before. Kind of stoked. Kind of stoked. Um, we're on the road to 100 subscribers. We just got our 83rd or 84th today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. As I mentioned earlier, we do these webinars weekly every Tuesday. I think this is our 61st episode. We've been doing these since October of 2023. So there's plenty of content for you to view there. Please like and subscribe. This video will go up more than likely by tomorrow afternoon. So, but good deal. Thanks,
Hey,
Jose. I will see
have a
you.
good
I'll
one.
see you next week.
Bye.
Take care.